434, a number that defines one man in one specific period of professional wrestling, CM Punk. For 434 days, he reigned as WWE Champion, 13 pay-per-view title defenses, and many more on television, generational rivalries, twists and turns, and record-breaking moments. Those are only a few of the things that sum up the incredible, memorable reign that CM Punk had with the WWE Championship. 434 days seems like maybe nothing in comparison to the time that we've recently seen Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns and 1,200 days as Universal Champion. You can also consider ones from the past decades, like the long title reigns of Hulk Hogan and Bruno Sammartino. But at the time, it was the longest world title reign that WWE had in decades. This is Sportskeeda Wrestling. I'm Kevin. What did you think of CM Punk's time as WWE Champion? Let us know in the comments below. To understand, we need to go all the way back to 2011. CM Punk was a verified superstar within WWE. There, well over half a decade, had already won multiple world championships, and his contract with the company was coming up to an end. And it led to a rivalry that many still consider the best of the decade, Punk getting into it with John Cena. Got louder every single week until Money in the Bank 2011, when in his hometown of Chicago, at the Allstate Arena, they gave him one of the all-time greatest receptions for a main event. It is easily one of the best pay-per-view main events in WWE history in terms of a storyline payoff that delivered with him as the central player. With CM Punk leave in his hometown with the WWE Championship, taking it off John Cena, and leaving the company in the process. And that's exactly what happened. CM Punk would be the talk of the WWE while not being on WWE television, even interrupting WWE officials at a comic book convention. He would become WWE Champion again after returning, after he first walked out on the company with the title, in storyline anyway, before unifying it against John Cena at SummerSlam. Punk was on top of the world, only for Alberto Del Rio to come out and foil everything, putting a damper on the end of the summer of Punk with a Money in the Bank cash-in to become the WWE Champion. Around this time, Punk also got into it with Kevin Nash and Triple H, whom he clashed heads with backstage and brought up in that infamous pipe bomb promo. This was a clash of generations, and CM Punk alleged that his loss to Triple H at Night of Champions that followed really put a damper on everything. They really were not running with this whole CM Punk thing, and it's hard to argue against that given how much momentum he had coming out of the summer. Still, CM Punk remained in the WWE title scene, and at Survivor Series 2011, he won the WWE Championship back at the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden, against Alberto Del Rio. WWE was getting things back on track when they would have a history-making run with CM Punk as WWE Champion. Apart from his two title defenses that started off this run with the title, he beat The Miz and Alberto Del Rio in a tables, ladders, and chairs match. Then Dolph Ziggler would try to show off at the Royal Rumble, but Punk would be valiantly still champion. And at the same time, none of these title defenses felt predictable. CM Punk, the WWE Champion, was ready for WrestleMania in the Sunshine State of Florida. At WrestleMania 28, he would face Chris Jericho. Yeah, punk rock versus hard rock in a match to retain the WWE Championship. A card that was headlined by The Rock and John Cena, and Undertaker, and Triple H and Hell in a Cell. Still had a very underrated, in retrospect, Punk victory over Jericho. But the issue was there. With all the things that were going on in WWE and CM Punk as the WWE Champion, he wasn't the guy in WWE. He wasn't even closing out the show at the Show of Shows while still having the company's championship. This would come around again a year later, but we'll get to that in a bit. The feud with Chris Jericho was really underrated. Jericho made it very serious, playing into CM Punk's turbulent youth, alleging that his father was a drug addict and his sister was an alcoholic. Punk retained at WrestleMania and had an ongoing feud with Jericho, and a little mini program with Mark Henry, facing him in 3 matches. The first 2, Jericho attacked him and reignited their issue. It culminated in an Extreme Rules match match, a Chicago street fight to end their feud, with Punk coming out on top. But once again, he took the back seat to John Cena, who faced a returning Brock Lesnar in his own hometown. This was becoming a clear pattern. CM Punk may have had his following. He may have had the WWE Championship, but he wasn't gonna have the main event. He headlined only one show at this point as WWE Champion. You can make the argument that during the Royal Rumble, the actual Rumble match is a bigger thing than the championship. That's fair. For WrestleMania, he took a back seat to Cena and The Rock while delivering a personally motivated title defense against Jericho. And at Extreme Rules, Brock Lesnar's return was the real main attraction. Punk was getting bumped out of the spot than he felt he deserved, but his Elimination Chamber title defense may have been the most ridiculous oversight. He was in the opening match on the show, inside the chamber, while John Cena faced Kane in a freaking ambulance match. You have a chamber. It's way cooler than an ambulance. Imagine naming a pay-per-view Elimination Chamber and ending it with an ambulance match. But it was even more insulting when his next title defense came against another Ring of Honor veteran, someone that people wanted to see him clash with in WWE for quite some time, Daniel Bryan. They would face each other at the Over the Limit pay-per-view event, and it was placed behind John Cena versus John Laurinaitis. We now find ourselves in the summer of 2012. It's fairly easy to assess that Punk's reign so far as WWE Champion has featured consistently great matches, giving him, though, the unfortunate designation of being the number 2 star in the company despite holding that title. It was still John Cena at the top, and he had to fight that perception with other champions and other performers in the company all the time. It would be a foreshadowing of things to come, renewing his feud once again with the franchise player John Cena, who just won the Money in the Bank briefcase. Cena had that anywhere, anytime, cash it in championship opportunity, and Cena decided to be a bit unwise and honorably cash in ahead of time with his Money in the Bank contract in advance to set up a clash against Punk. Cena couldn't see the surprise element of a random cash-in. The match would take place on the big 1000th episode of Monday Night Raw. But earlier in the night, The Rock came in to announce that he would be facing Punk for the WWE Championship a half a year later at the Royal Rumble. But when Punk retained the WWE Championship that night over John Cena after the interference of the Big Show, making it the first failed Money in the Bank cash-in in quite some time. He didn't stop the Big Show from attacking Cena, though. Instead, when The Rock came in to make the save, he attacked him. That's right. Punk hit the GTS to cement a shocking character change, kicking off the second part of his historic title reign with a massive chip on his shoulder and the WWE Championship still around his waist. It was a big shock at the time because he went from being the anti-hero, the voice of the voiceless, to a bitter, narcissistic, resentful man. But the character change was a crucial part of the title run because it probably saved it from maybe losing its luster and made Punk a reinvigorated performer on screen. Even though he technically had been the WWE Champion for less than a year, fans weren't used to seeing long title runs around this time with WWE television. The longest title run in recent memory at that point was Cena holding the title for 381 days between 2006 and 2007 before vacating the title due to injury. While the first half of his WWE Championship reign was carried by being a fighting champion with consistently great show-stealing matches, the second part was all about twisted psychology of his character, how despicable he would become to those people that promoted him to the top. Following this villainous change, the Big Show was added to the WWE title mix, but it ended up being the fall guy at SummerSlam. Punk once again retaining the title in controversial fashion after both he and Cena made him tap out. After AJ Lee restarted the match with her authority figure powers, Cena hit an attitude adjustment on the Big Show, Punk taking Cena out to get a sneaky, unhonorable victory, but a victory nonetheless. Unfortunately for Punk, he was once again left off the main event, WWE choosing to focus on Brock Lesnar versus Triple H instead. Another true cementing of CM Punk's status as a bad guy who the fans should boo was aligning himself with one of the most slimy characters in WWE history, Paul Heyman. That's right, he was a Paul Heyman guy the whole time. He continued to hit brick walls when it came to Cena, retaining his title against him at Night of Champions because it went into the draw territory. Cena sustained an arm injury and had to be replaced at the Hell in a Cell by Ryback, a man who had notoriously become one of CM Punk's least favorite opponents ever. Ryback was going through a surge in popularity, WWE going with him due to a Cena injury objectively felt like the right thing to do. But around this time, CM Punk also got into verbal altercations with legendary Mick Foley and Jim Ross, while physically assaulting Vince McMahon. Punk was getting into it with everyone. And if he wasn't the top guy on the card, he was probably the most valuable guy on the card. What would be a difficult match, though? Punk defeated Ryback to end his 38-match undefeated streak. Feed me more and take a knee to the face. The Ryback later said on his podcast that he had a bad feeling about suddenly being bumped up to the main event so fast to fill in for Cena, and said that his career fell down after this. The Ryback still remained in WWE's title picture after this loss, and when he faced Punk and Cena at Survivor Series 2012, his all but guaranteed WWE title win was taken away by the debut of The Shield. 3 generational players for WWE would make a big splash coming out of NXT. It was Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Dean Ambrose. I was there, and it sucked the air out of the room with Punk in the main event of the pay-per-view. This new trio of goons would help him retain the title. CM Punk, now playing the desperate champion who would resort to any tactic or any help whatsoever to retain the title, was also dealing with the physical weight of being the WWE Champion, as he was enduring a slightly torn meniscus in one of his knees that kept him out of a title defense against Ryback at TLC, but he managed to dispatch him thanks to the Shield. CM Punk became one of the most hated men in WWE, kept defying everybody and finding different ways to keep the title. He even felt like a hypocrite and completely different from the person people were really behind when this whole thing got going. He got his big comeuppance against The Rock. Everybody knew where this was gonna go. The end of a historic title run at the hands of a people's elbow. Ultimately, business was business for WWE, and twice in a lifetime came again at WrestleMania 29 with The Rock defending the title against John Cena. This became an even bigger source of frustration. That chunk of salt on CM Punk's shoulder became a mountain of it. Many felt he earned the right at this point to headline a WrestleMania, but can you deny The Rock and Cena? He said that he pitched the idea of a triple threat elimination match and even volunteered to be eliminated in 10 minutes so he could get that precious Mania main event. But it didn't happen. Punk would get to do something else at WrestleMania that was headlined by Cena and The Rock. He'd steal the show. They may have sold the tickets, but he and The Undertaker had a phenomenal match. Maybe one of the best matches that Undertaker's ever had in his momentous and legendary WrestleMania streak. Punk may have even been in a position to end the streak. The fact that he was once again pushed aside for bigger names like Cena and The Rock was a tipping point. That didn't stop him from having an incredible match, but it was an undercurrent that was growing. The context was there. The legitimate frustration shared by a character on screen felt like something that was very real. So, was CM Punk's 434-day reign as WWE Champion and main event run worth all the hype? You're goddamn right it was. It may have been the best stuff from a single performer for WWE in that decade. He consistently delivered in big pay-per-view matches, on the microphone to make those matches mean more, make his opponents mean more, while still having a championship mean more in the process. The entire time Punk bragged about being the champion for so long, it made it mean more every single day he added to that record. If you look at it from a character arc point of view, that answer still is yes. How many championship reigns can you think of where a champion changes character while still having the title? Also, Punk reinvigorated the love of wrestling in a certain audience that felt underserved in Cena's WWE. If WWE is a 3-ring circus, Cena has his ring and Punk has his. It's hard to deny that he was second fiddle to Cena the entire time. But that's not really the point. We keep going back to it, but you can look back in wrestling history and see where maybe the main event sells some tickets, but there's another match that sends fans home happy, talking about the next time they're going to see wrestling. CM Punk is that type of player. Still, you can have your bittersweet perspective on it that maybe WWE was never 100% on the CM Punk train, but think about it. They gave him the longest WWE title reign of the modern era at that point. All of the TV time to build up to those matches, all of the promotion, the publicity, all of the products putting him on the cover of video games, all those different things that he didn't feel he deserved in 2011, he got to experience most of it in 2012 and 2013, and still had to endure all the injuries to get there. When one guy is the reason why so many people tune in, that's a pretty big deal. An undeniable deal. It may not have been the perfect run, but Punk wouldn't have been as big a star today without that momentous 434-day reign as WWE Champion. He may be considered one of the most important WWE champions of all time. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below.